Thank you, Nadine, and thank you all for inviting me to speak to you today. You know, it hasn't yet been a year since I moved to this role as president of Terex Cranes. And I can assure you that I've learned a lot, as it's been an interesting year for the market and for Terex. As many of you know, I had the privilege of leading Terex's aerial work platform business for 6+ years before moving into this assignment. And I'll be honest with you, I was a bit reluctant last fall when Ron DeFeo, our chairman and CEO, asked me to take this role because, well, things were going pretty well at AWP. In hindsight, though, I'm glad I said yes. It's been terrific to learn the crane business. It's a lot of fun. I'm having fun learning a new industry, meeting new customers. We have a terrific team, and of course, there are plenty of opportunities for improvement, both in our company and in our industry. If I was asked once in making the move from aerials to cranes, I was asked 1,000 times, so Tim, how different is cranes from AWP? Inside Terex, I think this question was really code for, good luck, Tim. Cranes is a tough business. From the outside, customers mostly, but media, investors, and others as well, the question was a bit more direct. It went something along the lines of, Tim, you're not a cranes guy, they'd say. So how are you going to learn the industry, and what are you going to do? My response is always the same. The equipment is bigger, for sure. The orders lumpier, definitely. And the business more global, my passport would agree. But AWP and cranes share more in common than people think. There are more similarities than differences. And when asked to speak to you today about key industries from a manufacturer's perspective, I reflected on what I could bring to the party. I thought about areas where there are more similarities between the business I know and the one I'm learning. And I wanted to talk about a topic that I felt I could add something unique, something powerful, something provocative, and maybe even something personal. And that topic is safety. The problem with safety is that it's often reduced to numbers and statistics or platitudes and generalities. In the US, we have a phrase that some topics are like motherhood and apple pie, which really means that they're so obvious, who can disagree with the point, with their importance? My objective today is to make sure that as a mother tends to her offspring and apple pie tastes delicious, we know that safety is the most important challenge facing our industry. And we need to turn up the heat on this topic. Most of us in this room would agree, yes, safety is an important topic, a top priority even. But my question is, do we lead our companies and our businesses that way? Is safety a personal quest, or are we just happy that we didn't have to fill out a form today for the accident that happened last month? In our operational reviews, after hearing there were no safety incidents to concern us, for how many of us is the next question, next topic, please? This morning, I'd like to challenge our industry to deepen our commitment to safety. This morning, I'll argue that the first step to doing so is to make safety personal. This morning, I'd also like to suggest that improving our industry-wide safety performance is also good for business. Can we have both motherhood and apple pie? I say yes, we can. I love my mom, and I like apple pie too. Safety needs to be elevated to the top of our collective agenda, and we need to leave it there. We need to strengthen our commitment. I know we're going to talk a lot about it, but I'd argue that we need to strengthen our commitment. In my short time in the cranes world, it's my view that we're too tolerant of accidents, and we're too casual. We haven't made safety personal, and we don't see the benefits yet that a safer industry can bring to our businesses. Now, it's possible that I'm wrong. Maybe the new guy just doesn't understand. Maybe I'm trying to apply Ariel's thinking to the crane industry. Maybe. But if my remarks this morning spark a debate toward a safer working environment, then I'll consider my comments today a success. If one crane operator goes home safely tomorrow because of what we discuss today, then I think we've had a successful summit and we've improved our business. Motherhood and apple pie? Maybe. But for me, safety is personal. And this is the most important topic in our industry. Let me explain why I feel that way. My first days as president of Terex Cranes were disorienting. There were a number of reasons, of course. A new team, different terminology, and a travel schedule that had me in more time zones than I care to admit. But most confusing to me was the seemingly daily notification that another Terex crane had been involved in some sort of field accident. Of course, we experienced accidents in the aerial space as well. But what struck me in this new job was the sheer number of crane accidents. After a week or so of receiving these notifications, I asked Klaus Meisner, who will speak to you later today about preventing crane accidents, if this was business as usual. And Klaus told me that while at the moment we were seeing more incidents than we would consider to be normal, I should brace myself to expect to hear about incidents on a regular basis. Now, to be sure, most accidents are benign and often no one gets hurt. But sadly, sometimes people are badly injured or tragically killed. Clearly, some incidents are out of our control, like a traffic accident, for example. But there appear to be too many accidents that are caused by operator error, inadequate planning, poor maintenance practices, or improper loading. So let me be clear where I stand on this issue. As manufacturers, distributors, rental companies, industry associations, and fleet owners, we cannot accept the idea that accidents just happen. We have a shared responsibility to make sure that, that every operator of every crane for every pick made every day is done safely. Now, this may seem like an overreach on my part or an impossible goal on our part, but our obligation, our job, is to ensure that every crane produced is the safest it can be when it leaves the factory, the equipment is maintained adequately and ready for work every day, that the right planning tools are used, and that operators are trained properly. As a business leader, I feel it is my responsibility to create an environment where the families of Terex team members know that their family member will return home safely that night from work. Why do I feel that way? Because for me, safety is personal. With 7,000 workers worldwide, I can't possibly know every employee or their family. Unfortunately, however, in the past year, I've met with two families that I probably never should have. In one case, I met the father of a Terex worker whose son had made a series of ill-advised mistakes on a production line that cost him his life. In another, I met the family of a team member who died from a 10-meter fall. Meeting his wife and infant daughter a few days later was very difficult. But most gut-wrenching for me was the little girl wore a bib that said, "Daddy loves me." As the father of two girls myself, that really got me. Frankly, it would have been easier not to make the trips to go meet with the families. And I hope you never have to do that. But having done so, I know firsthand how devastating an accident can be. And I can assure you that both team members were properly trained and had been provided with the appropriate PPE. But even that didn't prevent these accidents from occurring. Both times I promised the families that I would do everything I could as a leader to prevent similar accidents from happening again. These incidents made safety a personal journey for me, and part of the reason why I wanted to speak to you about it today. but I'd like to make it personal for you, too. I'd like to introduce you to Jamie Gray, a Terex Cranes service technician who was working in Australia a little over a year ago when Jamie didn't follow proper protocol. Jamie fell from height, suffered a massive head injury, and was in an induced coma for 2 weeks. His family was flown in from Scotland to be with him. Fortunately, through the miracle of modern medicine, Jamie survived, and he wants to share his story. So if we could play the video, that would be great.
I'm Jamie Gray and I'm 26 years old, and I mainly work on pick and carry cranes. Obviously out in Australia they're a relatively common model out there, but we also do the all-terrain cranes as well there. We do a lot of service and repairs on both models of the cranes, and the jobs that I was doing that day I've done hundreds of times. When you go to work in the morning, nobody ever thinks they're going to have an accident like that. I'll admit to that, I never ever once thought that I would go to work and I wouldn't get home for work that night, because I'd be in hospital for 3 months and then I've had to come back home to Scotland for a 3-month recovery period. On top of that, 3 months in hospital. Just at that height, I've had a trip or a fall or a slip, and I've came down and landed from that height onto the ground. And then obviously it was my head that hit the ground, so I've got the height of me on top of that as well. So it'd be roughly, I would say roughly about 5 metres. And that was enough to potentially ruin my life, which I've just been lucky that didn't happen. But obviously not everybody gets as lucky as what I've been in that respect. To cut that section of my skull out, to allow my brain space to swell and to relieve the pressure from the blood pushing my brain. I was in the hospital over there for 3 months. When I was in the brain injury over there was kind of guys, and they'd had some very similar injury to what I've had. They couldn't walk and they couldn't talk, and they were in that same sort of condition when I arrived. And sadly, a lot of them were in the same sort of condition when I left. And it's changed my attitude on a lot of things and changed my opinions on a lot of things, because obviously you see how easy life can potentially be taken away from you. Everybody watching this has obviously never had probably a serious accident, and they don't understand how it affects you. And it really does affect you. Not working when you're so used to working is such a hard thing. Like, this is the longest time I worked for. I was 16 years old, so this is the longest time I worked since I was in 10 years. After having this accident, I would never, ever, ever dream of bypassing any sort of safety system to get a job done quicker. Like, if a safety system is there, I would use it to its fullest. Like, there's absolutely no excuse not to, because I've seen what can happen. And hopefully people seeing this can see what's happened to me could easily happen to you. Like, if you're ever on the back of a crane and you think, oh, well, I'm only going up there for 5 minutes, I would just throw that idea out of your head and put a harness on and clip onto the harness point that's provided for you, because it could potentially save your life. There's no excuse not to use it.
As the video notes, Jamie is now back at work and just last week was cleared to return to full-time status. He hopes that his story will help others make better decisions than he did. Making our industry safer means we need to believe that every accident, that's right, every single one, is preventable. That's a big leap from where we are today, and doing so will require a change of thinking, a change in practices, and a change in expectations. But above all, it means that each one of us needs to make safety personal. The second reason safety needs to be at the top of our industry agenda is that it's also good for business. That's right, I said safety is good for business. It takes more than safe equipment, training, and PPE to prevent the types of tragedies that I've shared with you. It takes a culture of safety, leader by leader and company by company. As you can see from Jamie's video and hear from my stories, Terex is far from perfect. We have a long way to go. But let me explain our safety journey at Terex, where we are trying to weave workplace safety into the fabric of our company. Whenever a Terex machine is in an accident, I receive a report describing what happened and whether anyone was hurt. Sometimes we dispatch a product safety team to assist authorities conducting an investigation, and occasionally we analyze the machine to make sure it was in proper working order. Inside our company, every meeting, from the board of directors on down, starts with a report on safety. When someone gets hurt at work at Terex, I receive notification within 24 hours, and if it's a serious accident, within 2 hours. And for every incident, we conduct a thorough review of what happened to prevent it from happening again. Our business meetings start with a review of accidents and incidents, not in a review of our safety improvement initiatives, not with a review of sales and profits. In large group meetings, like Nadine did at the beginning of this meeting, we review the evacuation plan in case of an emergency, take note of who in the audience has medical training, identify the location of medical devices if they're in the building, and make sure that everybody knows what the plan is. Every Terex facility has a defibrillator in it, and we have over 500 team members trained in CPR. All of our factories have a daily safety brief, and many of them, in fact, start their morning with stretching exercises. Now, it hasn't always been this way. 6 years ago, Terex embarked on a journey to improve safety. Was there a single incident that caused us to this form of thinking or to chart this course? No. It was the realization that if we can't provide a safe working environment for our team members, we didn't really have the right to ask them for greater productivity, more throughput, and lower costs. Our focus on safety also lined up with a company-wide effort to leverage what the Genie team had started long before I ever showed up with lean manufacturing. Now, one of the most misguided concepts in today's business world is that lean is about reducing cost. Yes, done well, one sees eye-popping savings from a lean initiative, but a program focused on cost misses the point and frankly is often doomed to failure. Lean is first a people system with the main emphasis on ensuring a better working environment. This really hit me when I visited the Toyota Museum of Industry and Technology in Nagoya, Japan several years ago. The genesis of what we call lean, and Toyota calls the Toyota Production System, was the desire of a rising Toyota executive in the 1930s named Taiichi Ono to make his mother's workstation at a weaving loom at the company both safer and easier. Focusing on her working conditions, Ono felt better that she was safer at work. But he also observed that by working more safely, his mother's quality improved, she delivered on time more often, and her productivity increased. Everyone was happier, including his mom. So what we call lean isn't about cost at all. That's a big benefit, but it's not the point. A lean journey starts with an emphasis on safety, followed by quality, and then improved delivery. Cost is a distant fourth in priority. Now, I don't know if Ono's mom liked apple pie, but this is one case where the motherhood part really made a difference. Terex has been on a lean journey, which we call the Terex Business System, since the middle of the last decade. We haven't figured it all out yet, but we know it's the right path, and safety is the most important part of the journey. So how does Terex's safety journey relate to an industry-wide call for action? It's simple, really. As an equipment manufacturer, we're in the business of making money, of course, while complying with regulatory requirements and meeting our customers' needs. Doing so today increasingly requires complex engineering, sophisticated technology, and the highest quality materials available. But above all, our products must be safe. Building safety in while keeping costs down is an essential ingredient to a manufacturer's success. but that's also true for our industry's health, independence from regulation, and future growth. Competition among rental companies and among manufacturers is what drives innovation and lowers costs for our industry. Honorable crane companies rightly express dismay when a new competitor enters the market with questionable safety standards or suspect business practices. Manufacturers have a responsibility to make sure that our products, at least when we're involved in the sale, are sold to credible customers who take safety seriously. Similarly, over the past decade or so, our industry has seen new manufacturers enter the crane industry. I, for one, welcome these new players because they raise the competitive bar for all of us. But while their competition is welcomed, it's imperative that these competitors are held to the same standards of safety and accountability as every other manufacturer. Buyers who rationalize lower prices as a means of accepting lower safety standards are doing the industry a disservice. This is simply unacceptable because people's lives are at stake. Now, like our industry, the aviation market has seen upstart competitors invade the cozy two-competitor world. And that's actually a good thing. In the U.S., for example, regional jets, some made in emerging economies, have taken the place of larger aircraft on some routes. Many of us, in fact, flew to this conference. And while there are, of course, many people that have an innate fear of flying, how many of us got on the plane and really worried about our safety? Jumbo jet or regional jet, we just don't think twice about it. We take safety for granted. We get on the plane, we're presented with a safety brief that we've seen dozens of times before, and then we slept, read, or worked until we were transported safely here. Does our industry apply the same safety standards to our products that aviation does to its? Do we hold everyone to the same standard, regardless who the equipment maker is, how it's used, or where the pick takes place? I'm not sure I know the answer to that, but I would guess no, we don't. And the parallels don't stop there. Over the past 50 years, improvements in safety in the aviation industry are truly remarkable. In the rare case that an accident happens, every shred of evidence is examined and every misstep reviewed to prevent such an occurrence from happening again. Should we apply the same standard to our industry? My Google search found that there are an estimated 15,000 jet aircraft in the world today. 50 years ago, there were but a fraction of that number. Certainly, there are many reasons why the industry has seen that kind of growth, and I'm not enough of a student of aviation to know which came first, growth or safety. But I will make this statement. You can be absolutely certain that the aviation industry could not have grown as rapidly as it did if safety hadn't taken a high priority. Our industry as well has seen rapid growth over the past 30 years and has the potential for more in the coming years. As Dominic shared with us this morning, population growth is inevitable. In fact, many forecasters predict that the world will add 1 billion people between now and 2050. That's right, the world will go from 5 billion people to 6 billion people in our lifetimes. Building enough homes, schools, roads, bridges, and power plants to support all these people will take a lot of cranes, or not. If we don't improve our safety performance, our industry will be subject to criticism and potentially displaced by other capabilities. Yes, safety is good for business, but we need to lead our industry there. So to conclude, at Terex, we want our team members to go home at night in the same condition in which they came to work that morning. Maybe a little dirtier, maybe a little more tired, but we want them to go home safely to their families. Safety is not and cannot be an abstract concept for a Terex leader. It's a very concrete topic that we discuss in depth every day. As leaders in our industry, we have an obligation to ensure our equipment is built to the highest standards, properly maintained, and that users are adequately trained. We need to set an expectation that 0 accidents is the only acceptable number. Doing good for our industry is also doing good for our business. So when asked to speak today, I decided to speak on safety because from this manufacturer's perspective, safety is the issue facing this industry. You don't have to experience what I've known or have a Jamie-like incident in your company to make safety personal. It starts with a genuine interest in creating a safe workplace for our friends and colleagues. After all, what's more personal than that? Some might call it motherhood and apple pie. Thanks for listening.